The state television company Western Armenia represents the most important news for today. Good day. Today's broadcast. The commemoration ceremony of the victims of the genocide against Armenians in Geneva. The visit of the delegation of Western Armenia to Tsitsernakaberd. Commemoration ceremony for the victims of the genocide against Armenians in Uruguay. A pillar illegally was installed on the eve of the anniversary of genocide. We must remember and respect the memory of the genocide of Armenians. Message from the Prime Minister of Canada. Chronology of the genocide against Armenians. Cultural genocide. On April 21, in the Apostolic Church of Geneva, priest Gusan Aljanyan recited, prayed and held a ceremony for the commemoration day of the victims of genocide. Then the President of the Republic of Western Armenia, Ms. Lydia Margosyan, the President of the National Council of Western Armenia, Mr. Armine, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Western Armenia, Vartan Simonyan, participated in the event organized by the National Council of Western Armenia near the Khachkar Monument of Apostolic Church in Geneva. They paid tribute to the memory of the holy martyrs of the genocide against the Armenians. The visit of the delegation of Western Armenia to Tsitsernakaberd. In 2024, on April 24, was the 109th anniversary of the 1915 genocide against the Armenians. Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Western Armenia, Armine, the Chairwoman of the Parliament of the Republic of Western Armenia, Neli Harutyunyan, the Speakerswoman of the Republic of Western Armenia, and the members of the Parliament visited the Tsitsernakaberd Memorial Complex to honor the memory of the victims of the genocide. On April 23, an event dedicated to the 109th anniversary of the genocide against Armenians was organized in the House of Representatives of Uruguay. According to the press information of the Embassy of Armenia in Uruguay, the President of the country, Luis Lacalle, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Omar Paganini, Deputy Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Uruguay, Nicolas Albertoni, a number of other ministers and parliamentarians, political and public figures were also present at the event. Consul of Western Armenia, Dr. Pablo Tailanian, were present at the ceremony too. A pillar illegally was installed on the eve of the anniversary of the genocide. Naira Hayumyan reminds that Moscow and Ankara in 1921 agreements can neither be denounced because Nakhichevan cars will have to be returned to Armenia, nor extended because in case Russia will have to recognize the occupation and colonization of Armenia. Russia cannot sign or extend an agreement on the territory of the independent Armenia. That's why the cheapest option was chosen. Armenia recognizes it within the borders of the Soviet Republic and signed an agreement with Turkey. Eastern Armenia does not mention the documents that are the basis of Armenia's border, does not demand to find out whether the Treaty of Sivers 1920 is in force and Russian-Turkey agreement in 1989. The decision of December 1 on the unification of Armenian and Artsakh, the mandate of the Minsk Group, the requirement stipulated in Republic of Armenia law not to recognize Artsakh as part of Baku. We must remember and respect the memory of the genocide of Armenians. Message from the Prime Minister of Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau issued a statement on the 109th anniversary of the genocide against Armenians. Today, on the Remembrance Day of the genocide against Armenians, we join the Armenian communities in Canada and around the world. We remember this dark chapter in the history, honor those who lost their lives, and remember the trauma that many continue to suffer, was said in the message. 20 years ago, the Canadian government joined members of the international community in officially recognizing the historic and tragic reality of the genocide against Armenians. This recognition has a deep meaning for many Canadians, particularly Armenians in Canada. Together, we will ensure that the history of the victims is never forgotten. In Canada, April is considered Genocide, the Remembrance, Condemnation and Prevention Month. It reminds us of the consequences of indifference. We must remember and honor the memory of the victims of the genocide against the Armenians. We must stand up against hate in support of diversity, inclusion and human rights. It is our common collective responsibility. Genocide against Armenians Memorial Day is a time of reflection and commemoration, was said in Trudeau's message. He called on all Canadians to be interested in learning about the events that caused so many victims. Let's build a society where everyone will feel safe from discrimination and violence. Traduc concluded in the message. The original order issued by Talat Pasha, Minister of Interior, on April 24, 1915, Red Sunday, deportation of Armenian intellectuals, sometimes called Red Sunday, an operation organized during the genocide against the Armenians, during which the leaders of the Armenian community in the capital of Ottoman Empire and later also prominent representatives of the communities of the empire were arrested and transferred to 2 concentration camps near Ankara, led by the Minister of the Interior Talat Pasha by order issued on April 24, 1915. That night, the first stream of Armenian intellectuals were arrested in Constantinople. The total number of people arrested as a result of this operation was more than 2,345 people. After the Deportation Act was passed on May 29, 1915, the detainees were distributed throughout the empire and most of them were killed. Very few, including Vortanes, Papazian and Komitas, were saved as a result of special interventions. The Day of Remembrance of the Victims of the Genocide committed against Armenians was celebrated for the first time in 1919 on the 4th anniversary of the events in Constantinople. Since then, Armenians all over the world remember that day. As a result of the satellite monitoring of the Caucasus Heritage Watch initiative, it became clear that the Ghazanchetsot or Old Cemetery of Shushi was completely destroyed on April 4. The destruction of historical cemeteries in the occupied territories is clear the direction of Azerbaijan's policy, because as a result of the formation and policy, the cemeteries of Metz, Taghet, Sharnakh, Shushi, Northern Yerevan gates, as well as the cemetery near the village of Vazgenashen have already been destroyed. According to Article 4 of the 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in Time of Armed Conflict, any acts of vandalism, theft, robbery, misappropriation, hostilities, and representals against cultural heritage are prohibited. According to the First Hague Protocol of 1954, it is forbidden to destroy cultural or spiritual values in the occupied territories. Such a policy of deliberate destruction of cultural heritage is also condemned by UNESCO's 2003 Declaration on Deliberate Destruction of Cultural Heritage. It is important to note that the destruction of a cemetery can be considered a crime against personal dignity according to the interpretation of the Rome Statute. Destruction of cemeteries violates the rights of culture of Artsakh Armenians, preventing them from preserving their memory. Now let's remind that the right to culture is fundamental, stipulated in Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The lack of access to heritage and the resulting inability to perform traditional burial rites can deprive communities of the ability to keep their rights alive, thus violating the rights of unborn children to live according to their own way of life. Dear compatriots, and finally, let us remind you that the government of Western Armenia invites you to participate in the commemoration ceremony of the victims of the genocide committed against the Armenians. The ceremony will be held on April 27 at 12 o'clock in Tsitsernakaberd Memorial Complex. At the event, the President of the National Council of Western Armenia, Armine Agatangeghos, will make a speech. For additional information, you can call 0605 1920. Entrance is free. This was all for today. Goodbye.